It is my sincere honor to introduce our keynote speakers today. Tem Blessed is a socially conscious hip-hop artist who has been making relevant music with a message for over a decade. Born in Guinea-Bissau, West Africa, to Cape Verdean parents, his music and message are about social justice and sustainability, and are designed to inspire the audience towards positive change and global responsibility. Tem is also the author of Planeta Blue, Rise of Agu, an Afro-futurist graphic novel adventure that tells the tale of inner-city youth as they fight to save humanity and animal kind from a billionaire oil tycoon turned evil world conqueror. Evelin Aquino is a Boricua Dominicana from Western Mass and Washington Heights, New York City. She's a graduate of UMass Amherst and has worked with hundreds of youth and communities across the country as an educator, trainer, mentor, and facilitator. Evelin has dedicated her life to social justice, utilizing the arts as a vehicle for empowerment and education towards liberation. She is deeply inspired and guided by the youth of today, her family, elders, especially her father, and ancestors. Welcome, Tem and Evelin.
It's supposed to be banging, you know?
Yeah, we're trying to get that music bump. Make some noise, y'all, for yourself. Thank you to my brother, beautiful, powerful. Make some noise for my brother right there. I think we're gonna get right into this. I think we got to.
Yeah, we have to. Time is of essence.
Time is of essence, yes indeed. Right.
I just want you to hear her voice as best you can.
I love that. Make some noise for that sister. Why was it important for us to come out to this song?
This author, as many of my English teachers know, some social studies teachers have begun using Elizabeth Acevedo in their curriculum. Elizabeth was my student, and she represents what so many of our young people can be. She is on her 7th book. 7th. She graduated from high school about 15 years ago. Maybe 16. So I use her as an example, but she's also my teacher. Her fierceness, her fire, was not unlike many of our students. And I had the pleasure of being in the spaces that she calls, that she names as nurturance to her voice. Nobody gave it to her. She had it. She had it. So That's why I said if I'm ever on stage, I'm coming out to that song.
Yeah.
I'm coming out to that song to honor her, to honor our music, that our brother very beautifully demonstrated, the drum, which is our heartbeat. This is our lifeline of generations, across generations, across generations, across generations, and it shows up in so many different iterations. So we're gonna get into it. Tem and I are, well, I'm not gonna introduce him, he's gonna introduce himself, but when I talk of that iteration and we talk about the arts, it's about creating the space. And that's what we're gonna, delve into when we talk about what we're gonna talk about.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you so much, Jose. You were able to set the tone exactly where we were headed, of the acknowledgement that's needed in today's day and age when we talk about education. It is the time. It's time to be very, very different.
Yeah. And really throw my hands for being here, right? Saturday morning, cold, could have been just laying in bed, hanging out, watching cartoons. That's what I'd be doing. But y'all chose to be here, right? For liberation. I love that word. And, Evelin and I, we've known each other now, both graduates from UMass, for 29 years. 29 years. I came here in 1992. You came here in 1994. So 29 years we've known each other, respected each other. And when we got this invitation to be here, we were like, how are we going to do this? I kind of felt like J-Lo and, when they were asked, J-Lo and they were asked to do the Super Bowl there. Shakira, right? I was like, because I could be in the audience right now listening to you.
Likewise.
You know what I mean? And likewise. So it's like, how are we going to do this? And at first we're like, well, you go for a half hour and I'll go for a half hour. Then you came up with a great idea to let's have a conversation, right? Because that's been our relationship. Always supporting one another, having these conversations, building this relationship as we try to navigate this world that is beautiful. But also, as we know, we see the bullshit, so excuse my French, right? But we can see it. We can see it. Our students, our young people, they can see it with their shiny, bright eyes, right? They see through that, and we see through that. And that's why we're here today, really, is to how do we strategize, how do we get together as a community and liberate our minds, our bodies, our spirits. And so I'm excited for this conversation. Y'all excited for this conversation? Yeah.
My name is Evelin Aquino, and I'm the daughter of Juan Aquino and Juana Aquino, and the granddaughter of Eleuteria Sanabria and Tomás Cruz, Seferina Feliciano, y Stanislaus Aquino. That to me is very important. Very important. When I stepped into this university, I was living not only my grandmother's wildest dreams, my father's wildest dreams, my wildest dreams. I stand on the shoulders of my people, my family, and all the sacrifices they made. I was raised by my grandmother, who was completely illiterate. And when I tell you not even a number can she identify, yet she was one of the smartest till today that I know a lot of smart people.
Yeah.
To this day, the smartest people I know. So when I showed up here to get an education, I came here to defy the stereotypes. I came here, and you know what really motivated me? When I got here and I saw the statistics of people like me that actually went to college. 0.1 of Dominicans were in the systems of higher education. I said, I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility. Not because it was better. It's about a translation, right? We're colonized people. That wasn't in the past. Our minds are still colonized today. That's where I come from. That's who I am. That's what helped me get to where I am today. That information was important for me to understand to push me and to continue to decolonize myself and to gain the knowledge and to share the knowledge that was going to liberate me and my family and my community. So when I came here, I knew that I straddled two worlds. Because in high school and elementary school, I hardly survived. I was that kid. Teachers, that teacher that when you get that first class, these are the students for next year, and you see my name, you're like, oh, God. Work double time. I didn't stop talking. I didn't stop questioning. I didn't start pushing. Because I didn't fit in the box. I didn't fit in the box. But guess what? Though the system tried to break me and say there was something wrong with me, they didn't know whose shoulders I stood on. They didn't know that I had a solid spiritual nurturance at home. And I had love that reminded me that I was meant to be here. I had culture that beat that drum, that swayed in our hips, that created that collective rhythm that made me feel alive. So when I went to school, it was a completely different world, but it didn't define me. It didn't define me. If anything, it made me a rebel.
Yeah.
Because I go with the flow in other environments, but in school, I was a rebel. Then I realized, I better get it together. I better figure this out or I'm going to end up somewhere else where I don't want to be.
Yeah.
And then in high school, I started to realize, all right, I see how this goes. I see how this goes. My sisters were straight A students in high school. When one in particular, who had also run track and done theater and been around a lot of other kids, when it came time to apply to school, she wasn't ready. She, the person, her passion, her heart was ready, but she was trapped. So she didn't have the qualifications for college. So she turned to me. She's like, I know school's hard for you, not because you're not smart. I was in 8th grade. She was a graduating senior with a broken heart. And she said, you take college prep courses when you get to high school, even if you have to fight for it. Even if you have to fight for it, because you're smart enough, and they're going to tell you you're going to fail, but don't. Don't believe them, and go for it. And I went to college prep courses, guess what? And I had to fight for them. Because my guidance counselor said, no, that's not a good class for you. You won't do well in that class. So I found myself in classes where no one looked like me, where no one really knew what I was talking about when I shared personal stories to contextualize what I was trying to learn. But I graduated, and my sister went through a pretty bad depression for a couple of years. And I graduated for us. And I came to UMass, and while I was here, she decided to go to a community college. And I helped her pick her classes. Then she moved to California, she started community college there. I said, don't stop dreaming, it's not over. And I just want to say that I bawled my eyes out at her graduation for her master's degree from Berkeley.
Yeah.
Desire. But why does it have to be so hard for so many students? And that's why I committed my life to this work. Because I was that kid. I knew I was smart. I knew I had something. Even though every day I had to go into spaces that said, no, you don't fit. No, you didn't say that right. You must not know what you're talking about. You're out of your mind. And I'm thankful that I had that. So I worked to create spaces for young people. Because like Michelangelo said, when people asked him, it's funny, I don't usually quote Europeans, but you know. I do quote artists. Michelangelo, when he was asked, how do you create such phenomenal works of art? And he says, I don't create it. I just see. God tells me that there's something in there, and it's my job to remove all the excess. And that's how I see our young people. I see my role is to create space, hold back all the barriers so that light can shine, so they can do what they do, so they can be Elizabeths in the world, so they can do and bring their purpose and their light. So in many spaces, using the arts, I have done that. In schools, I have done that, in creating safe spaces. And now, as an adult, I'm still accepting. Working with young people for so many years, you stay really young. And then it hits you, you're like, you're not so young anymore, you know?
Like, oh, I'm middle-aged now.
Yes, literally. I swear it hit me like at 42. I was like, whoa, I'm like way off the mark. Like, you know, to be able to create spaces and support other teachers and environments. So I've become a teacher trainer in creating spaces that we can not only honor the humanity of the students, but honor the teachers. And we'll talk a little bit more about that next. I'll let my brother share.
Yeah, beautiful. Make some noise for that. Well, yeah, as far as like who am I, right? Just like you all, like I'm a soldier for love, a general for peace. I wage love in the streets, fight so everyone can eat. Roof over your head and shoes on your feet, a shirt on your back and a bed for you to sleep in. But we ain't sleeping, we stay woke. My third eye sees everything I spoke. These words Van wrote to lift all boats, ride waves, we ain't slaves, chains get broke. Like iron sharpens iron, the belt of Orion. Universal truth like wings, I'm flying. Follow your youth, don't give up, keep trying. Speak your truth, alternative facts is lying. Cause in this journey, we stay worthy. We take risks, your doubts don't concern me. We for the kids, the moms, the attorney, the teacher, the atheist, the clergy. Cause everyone is welcome here, yeah. Just as long as you don't welcome fear. That's right, I said everyone is welcome here, yeah. Just as long as you don't welcome fear, right? And so for me, I came to this earth, right? In 1974 in Guinea-Bissau, in the middle of a revolution, right? In the middle of our people working towards an independence. So for me, Amilcar Cabral was at the forefront of the stories that was being told. My father was a political prisoner. My mom had to go back to Guinea-Bissau when he was locked up and get him out. And I never understood the story until I started asking the questions, going a little deeper. How was mom able to get my father out of prison? It's because she was a seamstress. And because she knew the woman who she used to make dresses for ended up being the first lady of this new nation. And when no one else was able to talk to the prisoners, the people who are there terrorizing him, who was there really, you know, inflicting all this pain, she was able to speak to this woman and say, listen, you know us, you know me, you know my husband, and there's no way that he's the enemy, so y'all need to let him out now, right? And luckily we got out. We got out of Cape Verde, we got out of Guinea-Bissau via Portugal, and came here to the United States. And it's a beautiful story because we all came, all 8 of us, right? I was the youngest of 6. Some of you all may know my brother, Sidonio Ferreira, my sister, Deborah Ferreira. Yeah, it's dope. And I like saying that because, you know, for a while there, you know, having a brother who's 10 years older, he thought he was my father, you know, especially when I came to UMass, and Mary can attest to this, because he thought he was my father. I was like, I got a father, bro. You know, his name's Anton Guzman, you know what I mean? And he's your father too. So, but he led me in the right direction. So shout out to Sid, love that dude. But I grew up, like a lot of young people, in housing, United Front Homes in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful growing up in the sense that there was a lot of people around us, very diverse, right? There was the Puerto Ricans in front of us, there was African Americans beside us, there was the white folks to the left, you know, and some more Cape Verdeans to the right? And it was beautiful until the drugs came in, right? Until the violence came in. Luckily for me, I was, at that time, had these mentors. I had my brother, sister, all of them, which came to UMass, right? Shout out to Clovis, the very first one that made, and he's actually the only one that didn't graduate. So the rest of us all graduated. So he just was, you know, he did his part. He was like, here you go, guys, go do your thing. and we've all graduated. But it was so powerful to come to this university, because it wasn't until I went back home, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I'm looking at the time. When I realized, when I went back home, right, after I was like, hey, I'm gonna go change the world, after I graduated with my degree in legal studies, my minor in sociology, minor in Afro-Am, with a crew called Busted Fro, already ready to like rock, you know what I'm saying? It's probably, yeah, Busted Fro, what's up? It's the E, yeah, it's the LI, it's the place to be. And so I went back home and I found a journal that I kept, because there was remember the first Iraq war? We didn't know there was only two. First one, I was like, this seems significant. I should start writing about this, right? And so I did, but most importantly, I was writing about my educational experience, my schooling. And I ended every entry with I hate school. In bold cap letters, I hate school. And I was like, did I hate school that much? Because I don't remember that, right? I was that kid who, I guess even though I hated school, I was still on the soccer team, right? I still was the class president, senior class president. I still was the spirit king or whatever. You know, I was still a rebel, right, with my Malcolm X hat, right? Remember that back then? And I loved education. I loved learning. I loved science. I loved math, right? I loved the arts. Came here to UMass, loved the experience, right? The experience was more than just the classes, but I loved Professor Bracey's class, right? Shout out to, rest in peace, Professor Bracey. Miss you, my brother. But it was really like deep to revisit, to reprocess this memory that I had forgotten about. And so when I went back to New Bedford, knowing I was like gonna change the world, right? Because we all think that when we get out, we did, right? To give us a little bit of credit, we have changed the world. When I went back there, I didn't realize how deep and systemic these challenges were. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten working with these young people. So I'll leave it at that as an intro, looking at the time. And we'll keep it moving.
Yeah. We're artists, so we flow.
Yes, we do.
And with that, a point that we talked a lot about in preparation for this were the main points that we felt, we wanted to really highlight. And our brother Jose in the opening really articulated a stark difference that I wanted to bring up today, which was the difference between schooling and education. Big ups to Brother David Stonewall, who's the first that I heard articulate that. Something that I felt deep inside, because at home my father was very much teaching us many things. We had the Encyclopedia Britannica, even if he had to take out a loan.
Yeah.
He was teaching us to read the Bible. I learned how to be a bilingual reader by reading my Bible. He had us read and study and meditate on the passages. He taught me how to control my anger, control my, fire. That was all education. My father came from the Dominican Republic. My father was that little guy, that 3-4-year-old selling lollipops on the beach. That's my father. Who then grew into a shoeshine boy. Things you see in movies, if you haven't had the experience yourself, or you may see it on your vacation. So, at the age of 16, he left his country to go to Puerto Rico. And in Puerto Rico, he was able to attend school and make his way to the New York City. I say that, and I'm deeply inspired by that, because he was 16 years old, capable. I am now an extension of that young person with a dream. So my father taught us what we call educación. Educación at home was respect, was collectiveness. You work together. I come from a blended family of 7 kids. We all had chores, so that the house would look nice and clean. We worked together. I come from an enclave of a very religious and spiritual community where we worked in community and took care of people. If someone just got here from Puerto Rico, they got coats, they got clothes. If someone got sick in the community, meals came from every direction. That's education. And I wanted to really spell that out, and again, thank you to Jose, to the teachings of many of our homes. Because maybe our families and our communities and the parents that you work with may not have the education that in our society is considered successful, intelligent. There is an intelligence beyond books that many of our young people show up with. And Gardner wrote a book on the multiple intelligences and learning styles. And just one more thing that I just wanted to end on was...
I got a question for you, though.
I got it. But, you know, something when I look back is I was pretty smart because I have older brothers and sisters, so to get me to stop talking, they would give me homework. Here, just do this. Stay busy, right? And so I learned how to read and write before kindergarten. But when I got to school and we moved from Springfield to Westfield, I didn't speak that much English, so I was in remedial classes. And they said I wasn't ready. They said I wasn't ready. But when the Iowa tests were given, I was 3 grades up. But when they dealt with me as a person, they couldn't see that. Because I didn't talk how they talked. I was different. So I just wanted to really spell out the experience that some of you, especially those of you that are here on a Saturday, you struggle with honoring with your students. You see it in them. You want to see it in them. You look for it, of the intelligence that they embody and how to help them be successful in an environment that doesn't measure that intelligence. And last thing, I one time realized that why was I successful even though I was such a pain in the butt in school was because I like to read studies. I'm a super nerd. I read dissertations, I read a gazette. My children, who I'm very proud of, will tell you I have a borderline addiction to books. And that comes from that desire to know, that desire to be able to translate so many things. But why have I been successful? I'll name it. Was emotional intelligence. And the fact that some of the students that show up to school every single day, the emotional intelligence that they embody is what will see them through. And it's time, that's one of the things that I really think schools need to continue to pay attention to. Because I was blown away. Tim and I have youth development backgrounds, extensive. Now we can say about 30 years. Extensive youth development. And when you go into the schools, we're now looking for funding for social emotional learning. That's our humanity. That's the part that makes us human. So I don't want to, we have a lot to share with you, but in the work, some of you may, I haven't seen many, but some of you may have been in my trainings, and I always begin with our humanity. You as teachers, you as educators, our students, that's what we need to start bringing back into our schools. We're not robots, we're not data, we're human beings.
Yeah.
For your sustainability, for your well-being, for you to be at your best, and our students need it, our children need it, today and for the future.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful, that's powerful. What you were saying reminded me of whenever I go into schools and I do presentations, oftentimes I give an opportunity for the young people to come up on stage, right? Open mic, dance, share of themselves. And this happens every time. Not just, this is not a one-off situation, an outlier, where the students that come up and show that emotional intelligence, a teacher will come up after like, how did you get that young person to come up? That's the student that I have a very hard time connecting with. They don't show up for anything, right? But here you give the young people, as we talk about best practices, right? We give the young person an opportunity to show their intelligence, to show their beauty, to show their creativity, to create that space that oftentimes in schools it only shows up in the tests, right? It only shows up in the books where we're asked to regurgitate the information. That seems to be a lot of the schooling nowadays. But I want to ask you a question, Evelin, is when did you realize you were an educator?
I was here at UMass, and I dedicated, because I knew I was an anomaly in my community. I was one of the few people, one, to graduate from high school in my community, and then two, to be able to go to college. I committed myself to always working, even though I was within these walls, I was in my community. And I'll never forget, I was choreographing a dance, merengue, bachata, and then had some reggae, because that's what the students were listening to a lot, so I always giving them the space to contribute. And one of the students says, "You're like the best teacher I ever had," because I was doing this in the school. And I was like, I'm a teacher? Not only that, I'm an adult, you know? But it was a trip, because I really harnessed, like I took that moment and said, I am, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm the best teacher that you ever had. And I'm gonna honor, and that's driven by all the pain that I experienced in school, of not fitting in a box, of not being good enough, and sometimes it wasn't even my behavior, I just showed up and I would be treated, right? It was just the way I looked, I was wrong. So I've always, I've been really committed to creating those spaces that honor showing up as you are and being respected for who you are, being respected for what you come with. So just, being in those after-school programs, and then later within the school, as a staff member, I've always felt that sense of responsibility, especially as I started realizing that I was an adult, that I'm an educator. This is education.
Yep.
These spaces, very similar to you, I worked in a program where big ups to Javiera Benavente, who actually works at Hampshire now, we started an after-school program called Life After School. And it was about supporting students with their whole life as they navigate school. And we were able to negotiate with the school that we can be an alternative to detention program. So when we were in the after-school program, some of the teachers would look inside and be like, and I remember a teacher said the same thing to me, how in the world do you handle this person, this person, this person, this person, and this person all in the same room? I said, actually, it's great. They're so intelligent. Like, their ideas, and it's that drastic difference between compliance and shining. And my heart goes out to the teachers that are within that system, that have been indoctrinated to believe that school is about compliance. And I'm super excited about where we are today, both Jose's opening, but also the era during the pandemic that we actually started to name white supremacy and the destruction of that in our society and in our schools. That we started to have language like decolonization, right? We need that because our schools have been rooted in that system. And so the change is being able to name it and understand that it's not an individual's fault. We're working within a system that we are all needing to put effort toward dismantling. Dismantling being data numbers. Dismantling being other, and that the measure of success or the image of success is a complete assimilation to what a colonizer looked like. Like, those days are over. Big ups to the Joint Justice team doing the work in the schools to support teachers and educators in that journey. It's not easy, it's painful. And I've had tears in teacher trainings, especially when we start to think about the pain that the adults have experienced in schools. And we've both worked at Youth Build, right? A nonprofit that takes 16 to 24-year-olds and gives them carpentry skills, and affiliated with AmeriCorps. But I remember being at the park, right? First of all, taking these young adults, who a lot of them are court involved, a lot of them are gang affiliated,
right? And taking them out into nature, which is best practice, right? Bringing these quote unquote, thugs and gangsters, with their pants sagging, so think like 2000, right? And they're fighting like, why are we going out in the woods? There's bugs there, there's bears there. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, trust me, y'all gonna like this, right? And before you know it, they're like skipping and frolicking, you know what I mean? Chasing each other, playing tag, they're picking up their pants, and they're doing all that, and it's like, bringing them back to the essence, right? Returning to the source of who they are, connecting to nature, brings out the best in us, and it's important to do. But I remember also being at the park, and then we were reading like, I forget, a book that they chose to pick, right? Like, hey, let's read something. For me, it was probably an autobiography of Malcolm X. Yeah, that book,
Can't go wrong.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that. So we're reading, and we're at the table, all of us, and this police officer stops. And he's like, excuse me, what are you all doing? And I was like, I wasn't in my because sometimes I'm there. I didn't push back. I was like, we're reading in the park. So it's pretty obvious when we do it. Are you like, like a group or whatever? Yeah, we're with Youth Build, Oh, okay. But why is that such a threat to the system? Why is just reading? Well, we know why, right? Because slavery was real. It's still real. Still happening nowadays. They, meaning the powers that be, capitalism, doesn't want the masses to be educated. They don't want us to be free. I always find like I have very good relationships, obviously, with folks of color, white women seem to like me. White men, not so much, not all the time, right? I love you, my brother, yeah. Right? But I think part of that, it's funny how sometimes, it's because I'm free, right? Like how dare you to have the audacity to be not only articulate, but you're a free Negro, you know what I mean? I'm like that chains have been long gone because at home I was getting fed that. But to still go, right, and this is 2007, still go to doing a performance just like this, right? I was doing a performance at UMass Dartmouth to get stopped by the police. Before you know it, getting slammed on the side of the police. Then before I know it, getting hit with there you go. Just like that. It hit my ear, bleeding, punched down, beat down. I survived the police attack, right? Before Black Lives Matter, right? Because we always knew our lives matter. We didn't need, but I guess we needed to say it. And even after we said it, people were like, do they know? Because all lives matter. They're saying white lives matter. We already knew that. We already knew white lives matter, right? So I had to really think about this. I had to really reflect and say, are you afraid of my skin or what's within? Because beyond this living sunlight, this melanin, is a millennium of intelligent gentlemen, godlike, the opposite of Zimmerman, strong like Trayvon Martin. We can't fight, we stand our ground till it's all right. But this long night, it never seems to end. Although we speak to make you understand, we bend, we compromise. But what about our black lives? Did Michael Brown really need to die over some cigaritos? Where are the superheroes? Over loose seas, where are the Bruce Lees? When I was younger, I thought my heroes were the cops until I got stopped and then I got dropped. So then my heroes became the Black Panthers. Lack of justice turns to black anger. The system will strangle you. I can't breathe. Oh, say, can you see? Eric Gardner couldn't breathe. We all saw the videotape. There's no debate. Broken system of hate wants me to wait. Sorry, Charlie. But my patience is long gone, plus I'm way too black and way too strong. And we got white allies by our side. Take out police brutality like apartheid in this long walk. We marched with Mandela, Dr. King and Selma through the Mississippi Delta. We marched with Malcolm X and Harriet Tubman. Marched with Rosa Parks. I see freedom coming. Marched with Frederick Douglass, Garvey and Carney. With my ancestors behind me, they can't harm me. Not the National Guard, nor the Army. Marched non-violently, cloaked by the words of Gandhi. Break these chains of racism, emancipated, I'm the master.
Go ahead.
Cause Black Lives Matter. Break these chains of racism, emancipated, I'm the master. Cause Black Lives Matter. See, they beat us, they choke and stomp us with their boots. Hands up, don't shoot. They chase us, they choke and stomp us with their boots. Hands up, don't shoot. So we have to constantly remind the folks, right? People but ourselves, because I remember being in that courtroom innocent, right? Because everything they did to me, guess what? They put that I did to them. And I'm like, well, how come y'all not bleeding? You know what I mean? How come, you know, I'm the one that was assaulted, but all of a sudden I have an assault charge? You know, luckily my community knew who I am, and they rallied around me, and after 2 years, 13,000, I'll say it like that, like I have to have economic wealth to free myself, all the charges would drop, right? Thank goodness. Thank you for the community. I love you, New Bedford, right? But this is what we deal with all the time. This is what our students are dealing with. And when we go into, as educators, we have these conversations, we have these circles, we have this meditation practice, which is a best practice, right, for all of us, ourselves included. And I remember being in that cell and wondering, like, am I gonna, like, leave? Is this it for me? Am I gonna get, like, locked up? And luckily I had a meditation practice at that time, and I was able to just stop, breathe, and instantly get transported, right, to a different place in time. And I share that with my youth, right? I share that with myself every day as I'm in the shower, you know. And my daughter Aura's like, what are you doing, Daddy? You know, and just grounding, because it feels like a battle daily.
Yeah. And so many students use that language, right? How many times have you heard the students struggling and just feel like, I hate this, that teacher says that, and our job in our classrooms and our schools is to find the heart to listen. And I know we're up against a compliance system, but we are human beings. Our young people are human beings. And when Tem shares these stories, and I share the stories, and even though we're much older, every time I'm working in schools, I'm experiencing mirrors of who I was, experiencing the exact same things. And that's why I said it's time. It's time that our young people feel safe. We talk about safety. We talk about drills. But what about when the teacher treats you like crap the minute you walk in the door? What about all those times that you show up and you still haven't learned how to regulate your emotions because you just got beat at home and treated like you weren't nothing, and there was no food to eat, so you have to show up the best you can. And for many of our students, it's a battle to show up. It's finally public that we are living in an epidemic of mental health. And you want to drill me about my chemistry homework? To go to work, to get out at midnight, to show up at school again the next morning. And you want to drill me about my essay? It wasn't done on time? So it's not that we don't believe that the curriculum is important. Let's not get it twisted. But let's find how we're going to teach our students acknowledging their humanity.
Yeah.
And we talk about, and Bishop Northampton and Amherst have been fighting with the unions in that same level of disregard that so many feel as educators. We've got to use our voices to fight for what you see is real in the classroom. for what you see is real, and taking that time to really get to know our students. In my trainings and in the work, we're moving into, schools understanding what restorative justice is or restorative practices. You know what's fundamental? Our humanity and our relationships with one another.
Yeah. Yes. Evelin, you wrote a book. Evelin wrote a book, y'all. Yes. Can you talk to us about, some of the solutions that you have in that book and just some of the stuff that you've been doing, amazing work that you've been doing?
Thank you, Tim. I'm still working on the promotion stuff, I'm about the real work, right? But I'm honored to have been able to write this book in particular because my commitment has been to intergenerational partnerships. It's been about providing the space, making space for young people to be at the table of the solutions that we need in our schools. They have answers, they always have. And we're now incredibly in a major culture division with our young people. And we want to make changes and we want to make things better, but we think we have the solutions. We don't even fully understand their world. We've got to work in partnership. We've got to work in partnership. We've got to create spaces to hold down the power, chill out for a second. Nobody's going to take your power from you. You worked for it, you got the degree, you get the paycheck. Students just want a seat at the table, right? And there's value to that. We'll be so much more successful. And if we can validate their experiences, their realities, and work together. We don't have to give kids agency. We have to create space for them to find it, to hone it, to hone, and that permission to say, we can, also tell me, what do you think? Sometimes it's just that. As I was preparing for this week, for this session today, I asked my son, who's driving me to school, what's one thing I can't make sure I don't forget to say? He said, to ask young people, what do we need? What are some possible solutions? We have ideas, we know us, and if we don't, we can ask each other and start to think about those questions. Hold on, I can't continue. Big ups to Ona Wumi, who's in the house.
Wumi.
You're not just a storyteller.
Yeah.
That's what you've done, and you have a beautiful gift. Thank you for showing up. We need you. You teach us. You teach me that no matter what, even if I'm showing up with my cane, I belong in these spaces to learn, to listen, to teach. Thank you for all that you've done, all that you've taught us, all that you continue to teach us. Because I've heard you many times in this seat tell your story. Guide me, give me permission to honor my truth. And I just want to say thank you. And to all the elders that show up when they're not getting a paycheck. Okay? That's what we need to start to see as our humanity together.
I wrote a book too, y'all. So, it's my book. It's called Planeta Blue, Rise of Agu. And as a creative person, like many of our students are, like all of us are, honestly, we all have gifts. It's how do you bring these gifts to light? That's why I feel like it's a best practice to really honor your passion. Our students want to find out about their passion. They want to connect with us. And we have to take the time as adults to connect to them, right? Like, those are fly shoes. That's a dope hat. Like, what's that? Like, what music do you listen to? I used to do these hip-hop quotables in my classroom all the time. Like, bring in some music, bring in a verse of whatever music. It doesn't matter if it's in Spanish, if it's in rock, it's rock and roll, whatever genre. But let's talk about those lyrics. And what I realized, just like when I was a kid, and we've talked about stories like bringing ourselves back to when we were in their shoes. I love comics, still love comics. I love anime and cartoons, right? Because they spoke to me. The first time my consciousness got raised was because I was watching Robotech. I was watching Force 5. And for whatever reason, the stories that they were telling, they was so different from where I was at United Front Homes that my mind, I could feel my mind like shifting, right? Seeing another dimension, like what are these Japanese stories that are so profound? So I wrote this book 252 pages, illustrated by Mike Laricia. It's powerful. I got some here if y'all want some, but it's also at the website. I think that's very important, is to create something, build something, be present, be here, be now. I hear the alarm going off.
And believe in our young people.
Yeah. Believe them.
That they can create, that they can shine, whether it's singing, dancing, writing. Big ups to the engineers. You know, it's just create space for them to dream. Every single tree is born from a seed. That seed is within our students. Yes.
I just want to acknowledge our young people. We have
Absolutely.
2 middle schoolers, 3 high schoolers who came out on a Saturday, an hour away, to have a seat at the table with the educators.
Yeah, make some noise.
And I look forward to sitting there when you're here.
Yeah.
That's right, I believe it. I believe it.
Hey yo,
So, this is
when I
where-
say build, you say knowledge. Build. Knowledge. Build. Knowledge. When I say raise, you say consciousness. Raise. Consciousness. Raise. Consciousness. When I say take, you say action. Take. Action. Take. Action. Generation. Now is the time. Take action. It's your time to shine. Generation. Now is the time. Take action. It's your time to shine. Keep shining, y'all. That's been our time. Anything else you want to say? If not,
Let love reign supreme.
that's it. We love y'all.